Followers of the channel may recall when I reviewed this guy, the Derya Arms DY9, which I bought simply because it was so inexpensive, I couldn't believe it. And I was rather impressed with it. Well, if you've been watching the other channel, you've seen that I've since been to the Derya Arms factory here in the US. That's right, an American factory for Derya Arms, and we've got one of their first products, Tabletop Review and Field Strip, coming up next. Some rather fun and practical packaging is the Derya Arms Island Kit. Don't check the box. This is like your, I guess, kind of standard ammo container, but it's actually useful for stuff, which I appreciate. If you're like me and you've got a bunch of pistol boxes cluttering up that you don't want to get rid of, but don't have an application for, that's kind of where most handgun boxes fall. This, however, is usable because the pistol itself is in this nice bag here, and the box has some room for other stuff. Yes, I have some things in here. I have some extra goodies from Derya Arms because, well, I've been making an effort to support them, and so they kicked me some extra things back. Full transparency, of course, this pistol was sent by Derya Arms after I went and gave them a visit in Florida. So inside this bag, which it's not the nicest, fanciest bag, but it's completely functional, and it's really all you need, which I also kind of appreciated about it. It's functional. You know, I have some really nice pistol bags, some beautiful stuff that I've collected over the years, and they end up being so nice that you're afraid to use them. This one's definitely usable. Inside we have our pistol, and you can see that island barrel. That's the amazing thing on this, but we're going to follow basic GBGuns review format. I've already had this out of the bag because I've been playing with it, but you do have a Derya Arms reusable chamber flag in there. We have a total of 3 additional back straps, which makes for a grand total of 4 options on the pistol now, which is very cool, as well as some new stuff that's coming for those of you that don't like the magwell. Like I said, if you saw that visit video, you're aware of that. We've got a brush in here. We have 3 of their magazines, which I've come to really like. This base plate here fits well with the magwell, and also it's just, I don't know, I've used it in other guns and I came to like them. So 3 of those, which is a nice bonus, especially for such an affordable handgun. And then we'll get to our manual. Longtime viewers know I go through the manual for 2 reasons. One, it helps cover my butt when it comes to field stripping the pistol. YouTube often accuses the channel of gunsmithing or modifying or creating firearms, which of course I don't do at all. But I think they think that field stripping that is somehow magically making a gun. I don't know. The other reason why I do it is because the manual shows us how well the company wants us to understand the product and how much care they've taken into it. There's some great safety advice in here for those that are first-time gun owners, and these are affordable pistols, so that's a good thing. Their specs are here, but they're also in the pinned comment over at the site that shall not be mentioned, is where you can get all of that. As far as attention to detail and helping people out, we have nice clear photos that are in here. I did not see any restrictions on ammunition, since I always get asked that question, but a very simple minimalist manual, but it still covers all of the bases. Now let's get to that gun. 2 reasons to be excited about this. First off, the camera can zoom and then focus for us. Maybe, maybe not. Anyways, this pistol is made in the US. Not entirely US parts, but still made in the US, and as I explained in my visit video, one of the exciting things about that is oftentimes when we have imported options, especially affordable imported options, there's the fear of, if I buy this thing and I need a part, what happens when, you know, is the company going to be around tomorrow, and what can I use? One of the reasons I wasn't afraid of that with the DY9, the original that I purchased, was that it is by and large Glock compatible. Most of the parts are. As far as which ones are and aren't, that's covered in my Derya Arms visit. And then the other reassuring thing is the creation of the factory in Florida. So these are made in the US, which means there are parts in the US, which means servicing should be very easy. Now the big deal is that island barrel. An island barrel, as you can see, those ports and the front sight are all part of the barrel. That is, well, the front sight's added in, but the ports are the same piece of metal as the barrel, requiring the slide to be cut like that. Now, I would like to hear you guys list in the comments what manufacturers you know of make island barrel guns. As far as I can list, it's Staccato with the XC, Nighthawk Custom with a custom deal, and there was a third I'm drawing a blank on. But all of those have something in common in that they are absurdly expensive, far beyond what I would ever pay for a handgun. And Derya Arms has gone and just totally shaken that up with this very affordable model that has the island barrel feature. Why an island barrel? Well, it's neat for one, and two, it reduces slide mass because you have to cut that slide out, that slide open in order to handle that. And then by increasing barrel weight relative to the reciprocating mass, we now have less moving mass compared to the mass that does move, and that tends to make for a smoother shooting gun. I'm dying to know what the weight difference is. That will be in the pinned comment as well, because that's I think an exciting bit of detail for those of you that are like me and gun nerds to what actually makes a gun shoot the way it does. On to the standard GBGuns tabletop video with an empty magazine in there. There we go, I didn't seat it all the way. And the slide locked rear, wow, nice, shiny, polished. Feed ramp there. Do we get magazine release or ejection? Flipping the gun over. And we've got release. But it does drop freely thanks to a slightly, it's either a very smooth internal or just slightly oversized, which is nice, especially if you're going to buy a Glock pattern compatible pistol. The inner mag well is not always the same diameter as factory. The magazines, factory or aftermarket, are not all of the same outer diameter. They can vary slightly, and this results sometimes in a snug fit or a loose fit. You've seen that in my range videos where I always shoot a multitude of Glock pattern magazines to see how they fit and let you know about those, at least with my sample size of usually just one or two from those to give you an idea. But something to be aware of. So by having this be slightly looser, we've got a better chance of magazines fitting and functioning. So thanks again for that, Derya. And we'll start up front. See, our barrel protrudes a little bit with a touch of a target crown in there. If you're unfamiliar with the concept of crowning a barrel, the idea is just to shave away a little material on the inner diameter there, so that should this ever make contact or be dropped or bang onto the muzzle end, you're not going to damage the rifling. Slide to frame fit is fairly tight. You can see we have 2 slots of rail underneath there. This texture, which I guess it was that just as good on the Turkish one, this texture to me feels fresher and sharper than it did on my Turkish model, but that could also be simply the polymer difference. We also have a little bit of texturing on the front of the trigger guard, and you notice that they use this stepped texturing, which is something that I appreciate because it does grip laterally, and because they're running the lines laterally, you get grip vertically, which is what a handgun needs because it's trying to rock in your hand under recoil. Nice raised trigger guard there. It's angular. I do get a little bit of contact on my knuckle there, but it's not Glock knuckle bad. It's not something that's going to cause any serious pain problems there, so I'm not too worried about that. Of course, our controls are easily within reach. They're all in Gen 3, Gen 4 Glock positioning. While we're here, let's do our trigger talk. Now, in my original DY9 review, I commented on the trigger. However, when I did my side-by-side 8 Glock pattern gun showdown, the DY9 was one of the best performing of those guns, despite that trigger that I had initially complained about. While I was visiting Derya Arms, I talked to them about that, and they had a Glock on hand, and playing with the triggers side by side, we noticed something. The spring-loaded take-up to the wall is lighter on the Derya than it was on a factory Glock. However, the total pull weight was about the same. And our theory is, because on Glock you're already applying more when you get to the wall, it makes the trigger feel lighter, whereas here you get to a wall that needs to break. And you can hear and see that little bit of travel as you're waiting for it to break. Part of that also is the way the sear engagement is set up. It's to be on the safer side rather than on the too loose, too light side, which is something I greatly appreciate, especially for an affordable handgun, and especially for a gun that can take so many aftermarket parts already out there ready to solve your issues. Back onto the gun, I've talked about the front strap texturing. This magazine well, which soon you'll be able to run it without. One of the complaints about it is if you're running a 15 round magazine, it needs to have a bigger base plate like this, because this grip length is actually slightly longer without the magazine well. That'll be coming soon. If you watch Derya's website, you'll be able to get that back strap to run flush. But what I like about it, aside from it being a big cavernous thing that's easy to feed, is you notice it keeps my pinky out of the way, so I can do that without hurting myself. I wear double XL glove hands. Those of you with smaller hands may not have that issue, but typically on a 15 round gun, I end up with half my pinky hanging over the edge, just enough flesh to get pinched by the magazine base plate when I slam a mag in, and Derya's magazine well prevents that. I also like the design of it. You notice that the heel is not flared out. It doesn't need to be back there, and that also helps with concealability. Slide frame fit in the rear. It's fairly tight. Notice we've got the fiber optic rear sights like we had on the original, but a blacked out front. Now the blacked out front is less than ideal, but when you have 4 big old ports like that, you need it. So that has to be blacked out, but you notice this is also optics ready, and that's another update that Derya has done. My original was not optics ready, and as I suspected, and I warned when I did the review on this, snatched these up at the prices they were at, because it was indeed a going into business sale price that made these so affordable. But prices come up, but now you have optics plates. It does take a plate system, comes with 2 plates for the gun. As far as which plates, check the pinned comment. That's where all the specs are on my videos. I like these lightning cuts. I can't wait to weigh and see what the difference is. I'm really curious about that. The serrations grab just fine. Coming around the right side of the gun, you can see we do have a reversible magazine catch, but other than that, no controls on the right side of the gun. Next we'll field strip the DY9 Island barrel and take a look inside the gun. Field stripping this, of course, is just like the Glock pattern that it follows. Check for clear. We're going to release our striker. We've got takedown pins on each side that you need to grab, and we're going to bring the slide back a wee bit. I like to pinch like this and use that to squeeze the gun. Pull those pins down and the slide will come forward and off. And inside you can see our nice US made frame, and I've watched them plane these, which I thought was a very I don't know if everybody does that, but it's the first time I'd seen it. I thought that was a cool trick or feature that they're having it done. Of course, the metal tabs are inserted, the grip frame, the plastic part is injection molded around those, and then they pull it out and they run it through a machine to plane those and make sure they are even and smooth. But you can see essentially the common Glock setup that we're comfortable with. It does use the Gen 4 style recoil assembly, which I appreciate. Dual springs tend to lead to softer shooting guns. They also make it a lot easier to remove. We tap down on our barrel just like any Browning action and remove it, and now you can see inside the slide, very nicely done. Rich black nitride on these, which I love black nitride, and man, a polish on that feed ramp is beautiful. Let's do our chamber fit. Chamber fitment is checked with a piece of Liberty ammunition, civil defense. We use this because the nickel plating helps reduce friction. It is also corrosion resistant, so a round that I handle like this all the time, it doesn't start to get boogered. Notice a nice little chamfer on the end of that feed ramp there. Drop the round in, listen for a plunk, just like that. Let's see if it rotates freely. It does. And then looking for chamber support, we can see we've got a little bit exposed, nothing too dramatic, but otherwise a good fitting chamber. These chambers are, by the way, hand finished. I witnessed that myself in Florida. And then you can see your island bits. that Island ports, 4 big old ports. The rifling does continue through the barrel, so you want to be careful not to use plated bullets, lest you risk pieces of plating come flying out those ports in random directions. And I'm sure you're thinking, well, there's no way it could come back at me. Well, I ask you, have you ever blown a snot rocket or cleared your nose into a sink and then wondered where the heck it went? That's the same process here. So take that for what it is. Pretty cool to see a slide that's all open on the front like that, but that's what we get with the Island barrel setup. I'm sure this has a different weight than the factory slide. Reassembly is the inverse of disassembly, of course, and as I do this, I'll tell you about what you can expect in the range video. You'll see my absolute first shots through the gun. That's right, no warm-up. I don't do highlight reels, I don't do fail reels, and I sure as heck don't do sizzle reels of me shooting. I turn on the camera and then I start shooting so that those all-important first impressions are captured. Then we'll do full magazine +1, see how the Derya made magazines function fully stuffed. I'll bring out a handful of other Glock pattern magazines so we can do a multi-mag test and see how other mags fit in the gun. We'll have our trademark What's for Dinner table, see what the gun eats with 10 additional loads to run through the gun. Some may be plated, some not. My iPro will tell us. Then the spinner for sights and trigger control. It'll be interesting to see what kind of energy loss there is with this. I'm really curious about that, and I am curious also to shoot these things side by side, which will be in another video over on the other channel. Try some drills with this using AccuShoot and see if we've got a notable performance difference. I do believe I'm going to mount an optic for this review, simply because that blacked out front is going to be tough to see, and really when you've got a blinged gun like this with an Island barrel, shouldn't it also have an optic on it? I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. That's the tabletop review of the DY9 Island barrel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thank you to our Patreon supporters! GBGuns and I do to level. Derek S. Jr., Joseph T. Algeta Ray, Tom Scott King, Brian P. Rich, Moises S. Fast Eddie, Talos 115, Marvin T. David F. Donald H. Shannon I. Greg K. Hey, thanks for the tip level. Christopher J. David Bree, Andrew B. Gordon
correction and update. As I was removing the optics plate, I found you do have the wrench inside with the bag. It's a M7 that fit, and as far as what I used for screws, the number 6x32s worked on this Osite X. Yeah, that's a big old window, but I figure if you're gonna go island barrel, might as well go big window. Let's have some fun with this. I'll see you on the range.